Welcome to the Godly Playroom at First United Church. My name is Ruth Womack, and I am so fortunate to be able to be in this godly play space and to share a story with you. I wonder what you need to help you be ready today. It is Holy Week, and there are many services and many different ways to come close to God in this time. We sometimes revisit many of those stories of Jesus' final life. And so there are Stations of the Cross online, and there are Maundy Thursday services where people wash feet, and Good Friday services, and Easter Vigil, which is that time in between Good Friday and Sunday, and then we celebrate Easter. So as Lent is a time to help us get ready to come close to the mystery of Easter, Holy Week is like an immersive into that Lenten preparation. And today's story is in the time of the color black, which doesn't show up on our calendar because our calendar only shows the Sundays, and Good Friday is the time of the color black. So those are some of the things we've done to help get the room ready. But I wonder what you need. Perhaps you want to find a candle to light, or a battery candle if that's a better suit for you. You might want to find some art materials to do with response a little bit later after the story. Or you might want to have your feast things ready. Maybe you just need to sit for a little bit. So know that you can pause the video at any time, either to have more conversation, to get what you need, or to take a little more time to get ready. Sometimes even when we think we're ready, something happens in the story and oof, we aren't maybe as ready as we thought. I like to take a deep breath in through my nose and out through my mouth. And I usually find 2 or 3 of those help me settle in. This is a time of the church year when I spend a lot of time getting many things ready. And sometimes I forget to get myself ready. Once, there was someone who said such amazing things and did such wonderful things that people began to follow him. And the more they followed him, the more they wondered who he was. During Holy Week, there are many questions and rumors about who he is. But we know him best, perhaps, as the light. And many times when he was asked that question, who are you? He would say the light of the world, the bread of life. I am the true vine. I am the good shepherd. Are you ready for a story? Today's story is in this time of the color black. We use the black underlay for another story that is about the great gifts. Gifts that are so huge, they're hard to see. In that other story, there is nothing until God smiles and then creates everything out of that nothingness. There are not very many smiles in this story. But still, perhaps God is able to create something new and amazing out of tears and emptiness. Once, there was someone who said such amazing things and did such wonderful things that people began to follow him. The more they followed him, the more they heard him talk about a kingdom. But it wasn't like any kingdom they'd ever visited. It wasn't like any kingdom they lived in. In fact, it wasn't like any kingdom they had ever heard of. And so often they would ask, "What is the kingdom of heaven like?" And most times when they asked him that question, he would say, "The kingdom of heaven is like," and then tell them a parable, which really doesn't always seem like an answer in itself. But then one day, he knew he had to become a parable. And so he turned toward Jerusalem for the last time. When Jesus and his friends came into Jerusalem that Sunday morning, it was Passover, and the city was full of people to celebrate that festival. They thought he was coming to be a king, but they weren't paying attention. He didn't ride into the city on a great white war horse. He wasn't carried into the city by soldiers. He rode into the city on a donkey. And it wasn't even his. He borrowed it. Still that day, the people waved palm fronds, which is a sign of royalty, and they laid them in the street in front of him. The first place Jesus went, whenever he arrived in a community, but especially in Jerusalem, was to the synagogue or temple. But when he got to the temple in Jerusalem to pray, he found the money changers there and the buyers and sellers. And he got angry. People seemed to care more about making money than they did about praying with God. And so he took a whip and he turned over the tables of the money changers and the buyers and the sellers, and he drove them out of the temple. He said it was more important to love God than it is to love money. One night, when Jesus was sitting at table with his friends, they'd gone for supper, and a woman came in with a very expensive jar of perfume. And she poured it over Jesus' head, and it ran down into his feet, and she wiped them with her hair. Some of the disciples got angry. They said it was a waste. But Jesus defended the woman. He said, "She has done a good thing for me, preparing my body for burial." Whenever the good news is shared, this story will be told in remembrance of her. One of the days when Jesus was teaching in the temple, he was watching the people come and go as they put their donations in the treasury box. And he saw an old woman. who came and put in 2 coins. And he said to his disciples, "Look, did you see what that woman just put in?" And they said, "No." Jesus said, "She put in 2 small coins, the smallest coins there are, but it was all that she had. Now look, see, here comes a rich man. He is so wealthy, he has someone help him carry all of his money, and you can hear it clanging and ringing as it rolls into the treasury box." And then Jesus asked his friends, "I wonder who gave more, the rich man or the old woman?" Some said the rich man, but some thought the old woman. On Tuesday and Wednesday, Jesus was teaching in the temple, and on Thursday, the temple guards said, "We will take him." But on Thursday, Jesus was nowhere to be found. And late that night, he and his disciples hurried through the darkened streets. They climbed the stairs to an upper room where they would celebrate their last Passover together. After Jesus and the others had eaten all that they wanted, Jesus took some bread, and he blessed it, and he broke it, and he shared it with them. And he said something like, "Whenever you share the bread like this, I'll be there." And then he took the cup with the fruit of the vine, and he poured it out for them and shared it with them and gave thanks to God. And he said something like, "Whenever you share the cup like this, I'll be there." What could Jesus mean? Of course he was there. He was always saying things like that. They did not understand, but they didn't forget. And later they would remember, and they would understand. Judas got up suddenly and left. The others sang a hymn, and then they went to the Mount of Olives, to the Garden of Gethsemane. Jesus wanted to pray. When he was finished praying, he joined the others, and Judas appeared out of the night. He greeted Jesus with a kiss, which was a sign for the temple guard to arrest him. They seized Jesus and dragged him away into the night, and his friends fled into the shadows. The night was a long and confusing one. And in the morning they took Jesus outside the city and they crucified him. They nailed his body to a cross. And later that afternoon he died. The sky grew dark, and the women stood and watched while they took his body down from the cross and laid it in a cave for a tomb. They rolled a great stone across the opening to close it like a door. On Saturday, it was so quiet, you could almost hear the earth breathing. And then on Sunday morning, that first Easter morning, it was the women who went to the tomb. They wanted to be close to Jesus even though it was sad. But when they got there, the stone had been rolled away and the tomb was empty. Some of them hurried back to tell the others, but Mary Magdalene waited by the tomb. Then she went to look for someone who could help her find Jesus' body. She met a gardener. And then he called her by name, Mary. And she knew it was Jesus. He had died, but somehow he was still with them, just as he is with us today. Especially when we share the bread and the cup. And so this ending becomes a beginning. And God creates something new and amazing out of that empty tomb. I wonder what you liked best about this story. You can pause the video at any time if you'd like to do some more thinking or wondering in your household with any of the questions. I wonder what part of this story is the most important part. I wonder if there's any part of this story we could leave out and still have all the story that we need. Sometimes we'd like to leave out this part. But then we wouldn't maybe have this part. I wonder what part of this story is especially for you today. Or where you are in this story. Sometimes we like to be in this place, in that place of celebration, either with Palm Sunday or Easter. And we really don't want to think about this part. Or maybe we've been told that good Christians don't get angry. And it's important for us to remember that Jesus did get angry. That there are some things in this world that are worth being angry about and doing something about. I always wonder about the women in the story, who each gave gifts, one a very expensive and intimate one, and one a very small gift, and yet everything that she had. I wonder if those helped Jesus. Could he smell the fragrance of that perfume in the midst of all the sweat and the horror of that crucifixion? Did he remember the widow's gift when he was dying and giving everything he had? Many people will be celebrating in a day or so, and hopefully with family for Easter gatherings for the first time in a long time. And we will feel that holy presence on Easter Sunday when we break the bread and share the cup. And even in those times when we don't fully understand, we remember, trusting that eventually we will understand. If you want to read more about this story, you can find bits of it in different orders and different ways of telling in each of the 4 Gospels. Always near the end, and a significant portion of those Gospels, 2 or 3 chapters anyways, to read more about this story of Holy Week. But for now, I'm going to put the story away. And you can begin to think about what work you might like to do in response to this story. It's so huge. But maybe like the great gifts, we're just invited to notice parts of it. We remember the stone that was rolled away, the emptiness that held something far bigger than most of us can imagine. And the cross that is empty too. The bread and the cup that were shared. An old covenant shared in a new way. The gift of the widow. The beautiful nard. Fragrant. And the whip and the tables that were turned in the temple. I wonder what we sometimes love more than we love God. And the palms that are a sign of royalty. It's been a delight smelling the fresh palms in the sanctuary this week. And hopefully there will be some still left for you to enjoy. And the time of the color black. I'm going to get my response materials ready and bring the camera a little bit closer, and you can find your things and come on back whenever you're ready. So, I have a piece of paper and some scissors. It's not very much, but I'm going to hopefully show you how to make a cross. I had hoped to have some actual palm frond to work with, but I don't have one of those with me today. So you take the green strip of paper, or whatever color, thicker ribbon works too. If you had a really long piece of grass or a piece of bulrush, and about 2/3 of the way down that, you're going to fold it at an angle like that. Can you see? So you can fold it just like that and make a good crease. And then we're going to take this side piece and we're going to fold it in front so that it's, again, another right angle, only this time going at the other side. And then we're going to fold it back again. So it's going out the same direction we started. So basically, you fold wrapped this side arm around the other piece. Now, I'm going to take this piece and fold it up behind so that it's coming up the top now. And then I'm going to find a gap here, right at the very front. And sometimes this is where it's a little tricky because your piece you're trying to fold through is a little bit wider than your opening. In my case, it's my glasses that aren't very bright. But you're going to slide it in through there like that and pull it all the way through so it's tight. And then actually, you've got kind of a good knot here, right? Those pieces aren't going to come apart. And then you simply take the side arm and fold it back through that hole again so that you'll get a piece going all the way across. Unfortunately, my paper is a little too short, and we do the same thing here on the front with the long stem. And then we should end up, needed to start with a little bit longer piece of paper, so maybe we'll make another one so you can actually see. There we go. With a very little cross, quite teeny tiny. I'm going to get another piece of paper that's a little bit longer and we'll try this again. Okay, I think we're ready to try this again. I got a little bit longer strip of paper. So same thing again. You're going to take that and fold about 2/3 of the way down so that you have a right angle or 90-degree angle. And you're going to take this side arm and you're going to fold it to the 90 degree to the other side and then back. And if you want to make that center spot just a little bit wider than this dangly piece, that'll make it easier to tie our knot. So now we're back to where we started. We've got the right angle going out this way. Now we're going to take this piece up the back and we're going to bring it inside that little loop here at the front that you've made, and I need again to fold mine over just a little bit. Have a good look. Well, there you go. See, it makes kind of a loop. And we're going to pull this piece all the way through tight. So then again, we've got that right angle piece. Then you can take your side arm and you're going to slide it back through that opening on the back side, just part way. And you'll see it'll be a bit of a loop on one side and just a single piece on the other. And there's your cross piece. And then you take the upright part back through that opening to make your cross. And you can leave it like the loop on top, or you can pinch it if you're using paper. I know when we do the palm frond crosses, we often leave that loop at the top. Then you can use it as a bookmark, or you could make different ones and decorate them. In the country of El Salvador, the cross has a special meaning. For many generations, there was a lot of violence in that country. People were arrested in the middle of the night and tortured or shot or imprisoned. And they left their country, many of them, and they chose to take wooden crosses and paint hopeful things, all the things that gave them hope, onto those wooden crosses to remind them that even in the midst of this sadness, there was still some hope and some wonder. I wonder where you're finding hope these days, in the midst of so many difficult things going on in the world around us. I hope you're able to get out and enjoy some sunshine. If you've had some spring break time off, that you had a good rest or got to get caught up with some family or some fun things. I'm going to set this out of the way and get ready for our feast time. So, welcome back. I wonder what you found for feast. I've been thinking a lot about Passover. And I don't know if you know that story, but it is a story about how God brought the people through the waters out of slavery into freedom. And they didn't have time to make bread for the journey then and let it rise and get all fluffy. And so they made unleavened bread. We sometimes call it matzo. So I got some of that for my story today, for my feast, so that I could taste the story a little bit. But there is a whole tradition and a ritual that goes around celebrating Passover, and I'm not Jewish, and so I don't want to speak for someone else, but if you get a chance sometime to be part of a Seder supper, that is a Jewish meal that celebrates and honors the Passover, and there are questions and there are different dishes that are prepared, all of which help people enter into the story and to remember it and to taste it. And at that meal there are special prayers. And whenever we feast together, either in the Godly Playroom or like this online, we take a moment to give thanks to God. Just as Jesus gave thanks for the bread and the cup and then broke and shared them. I wonder what you're thankful for. Holy One, thank you for the opportunity to be together in a safe way, for the stories that give us hope, for the people that hold us when we're hurting, for the promise of new life, even in the midst of much sadness and emptiness. Wherever Easter finds us, may we live into it with joy and wonder, even as the women went to the tomb that morning, not knowing what they would find. May our lives also be changed and be part of the change you want to see in the world. Amen. So, yeah, still sanitizing my hands, being extra careful. Too many people have been getting sick around me these days. I want to make sure it's not me. And here's that matzo that I was talking about. Look how flat it is. There's nothing here but flour and water. And there's not much moisture. It's pretty dry, this matzo. when we taste it. We taste the dryness of the desert. Perhaps we taste some of that excitement and anxiousness as the people were hurrying to get ready. Maybe we taste generations of Passover meals where families have gathered to celebrate. They'll be celebrating Passover in the Ukraine, in Russia, in Canada, and they will celebrate Easter and Holy Week and wonder in the midst of all that sadness and destruction how God might be bringing something new into their midst. We were talking a bit about death and life after death and resurrection, which is kind of a thing at Holy Week and during Lent. And someone asked me what I believed. And I can't say for sure what happens. Nobody knows for sure. But I believe God loves us. And I believe that love doesn't stop because we die, any more than I have stopped loving the people who have died in my life. So I think that love holds us into all of those transitions and stages of life and death and life after death. And I don't know for sure what happened with the resurrection, except I do know that those disciples that had denied knowing Jesus, that had run away, who were so afraid and hid out in their locked rooms for the weeks after Jesus' death for fear they would be taken, something changed. They had experiences of Jesus, of the resurrected or the risen Christ, we sometimes say, that gave them a new kind of courage and peace to take that message that God's love is stronger than even death. To take that message out into the world. And many of them also suffered and died, but they didn't stop telling the good news about how much God loves us. So something happened. And I have seen in other people's lives and in my life as well, those moments where life just seemed to be drained away and there was no hope. And then something happens. People do find hope. And I have found the courage to go on and to choose to be loving even when I'm hurting. Those are Jesus' words from the cross, right? As he's dying, when he says, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. And so we know ourselves also forgiven. Not because we deserve it or have earned it or have made apologies or make things right, although those are all good things to do, but because of the grace of God. And so that gives me hope to continue to share the good news. And I'd much rather be a bearer of good news than the other kind. I wonder what kind of news you'll share coming into this Easter weekend. In Mark's Gospel, there's something called the short ending. And when the women go to the tomb and they find it empty, it just says they fled in awe and trembling and didn't tell anyone. But Luke and Matthew and John all have stories about what happened next. And even some of the editors that looked at Mark's Gospel afterwards thought, no, we can't leave it here. We need to add a better ending. And so they created the longer ending. But I think Mark had it right. I think Mark wanted us to be the ones to read or to hear that story of the women's tale of that empty tomb, and then to be the ones to go and tell, to share the good news. Well, I think for now it's time for us to say goodbye. And to trust that there will be more times in the Godly Playroom, more times together. Maybe even a messy church where we can gather outside and have a bit of a picnic time. But for now, let's change the light. Because we know it's just in this one place and time now, but when we change it, it can be in many places and many times. It's a little bit like life and death and life after death, where the light is changed but not gone. Invisible perhaps, but still present in a new way. I think there's a whole bunch of stories about that, coming to know Jesus in a new way. You might even get to hear Jackie tell some of them. But for now, I will say, God bless, be well, and look after one another. And have your hallelujahs ready for Easter morning.